My name is Dr. Rick Seguil.
And action. Hey, Jay had a... This is Kirk, man.
Stress and investment coping.
Question is what to do when you have a foot limiting you with plantar fasciitis. For people who don't know, if this is the heel, these are the toes of the foot. There's supposed to be an arch in the middle. The midfoot is considered the core, like your core here. It's really cool the way the foot works. You're supposed to run and come down on your toes. Unfortunately, some people like to roll off the heel. That's not the right way to do it. I think we get lazy. So I like to run like a sprinter. I used to take care of the Chicago Marathon. I'd always be put at the 13-mile mark, 10. You could hear on the radio, okay, the gun's off. And then about an hour later, you'd see the Kenyans come through and you wouldn't hear their footsteps gliding. They were running like this. And you're talking about a sub 4-hour human. After about 3 hours, you see the mass of people with like wearing costumes and stuff. And you can hear their feet going slam, slam, push. Slam, slam, push. We have to depend on the muscles in the midfoot to be the core that tightens up. In fact, if you do come down on your heel, that's okay. But as you push off, the foot has to become solid. When it lands, it's loose. All the ligaments of all the bones of the foot are loose to tolerate the hit. As you push off properly, it has to be locked. So the muscles, the core has to be strong. If the core is not strong, it'll collapse and you'll start to, look what happens with my hand or my mimic foot. It's supposed to go like this, come off, start to cause the core to tighten up and then push like a horse. When you have a weak core, you go like this, you come off and then you stretch it even further. And if you look at where the plantar fascia is, the plantar fascia goes from heel to the 5 toes. The reason for it being a problem is that it's being stretched or pulled. So if you go like this, you're stretching it even further. Sometimes until you develop your core, and it might mean these chintzy exercises where you take a towel, teaching you those small exercises, working the toes, doing the alphabet with your toes. To dovetail onto the conversation about trampolines, that's nice because you can actually learn to do this. It does take, just like this core takes time, this core takes some time. So until you do develop that proprioceptive push, you have to also be able to say, okay, that's enough because I'm feeling pain now. Until you can develop that core, and you have to have an insert made, a hard insert. At least during the times when you're rolling off, the insert takes the place of the core being so taut until you develop your own core. To just rely on an insert personally made by a podiatrist, you have to have some cushion on those things. They also have to be very, very firm. If it's old, you might want to get that looked at again. As far as exercises, it would be tough for me to figure out exercises. I like my physical therapist to go from head to toe to look and see. There's going to be an irritation here, so we have to decrease the inflammation here. But at the same point, you have to strengthen the core here. And if this is my foot, you have to loosen the Achilles back here in the gastrocnemius muscles. You have to go up here to the hamstrings and the glutes because everything along that posterior chain will pull. And if it's being pulled upon, you're going to inflame. So an arch support would be helpful. Working to strengthen the toes would be helpful. We might have to get you a different physical therapist. Having a physical therapist look at the gastroc, the hamstring, the glutes, and maybe the low back as well, or a different running coach. What we want is actually this kind of position overnight, 6 hours in a splint, because at least if you can wear the splint, then overnight you're stretching this and you're stretching this. So if your toes are in the sheets like this, overnight, they're actually contracting. Get the splint that you don't need a prescription for. The hard plastic ones are probably the best. Working diligently over the course of time to build the core strength and proprioception of the midfoot, the core. Working on the posterior chain. We also had to look at work. If you're sitting at your workstation, then sometimes getting the elevated platform that keeps your foot like this will stretch it during the 8-hour workday. Or not switching shoes too often. Because if the inserts will only fit hiking boots, but they won't fit your slippers, that means at one point in time in the day, you're breaking the healing that has been happening for 8 hours. Worst case scenario, while you're doing all that stuff, if it is just stuck. I hate to say it, but getting a shot of steroids will help. It's painful going in, but it's beautiful walking out of the office. and it lasts for about 2 to 4 weeks. Sometimes it eliminates all pain altogether. Try to get as many anti-inflammatories in life as you can and take away those foods and activities that hurt and get better sleep, and hopefully there'll be a point in time where it all pays off. If it doesn't bother you, I've seen some nice yoga routines where you don't really have to move too much or stretch the plantar fascia too much. And if you just do sun salutations and just avoid where you're overstretching the heel, I can put you into 3 positions that will really get your heart rate going. It's not going to be like a run, but it will be challenging and you won't hurt the heels. Good questions.